Hello and welcome to Talk from Superheroes. Hey everybody, I'm Andrew Ivamy.
And I'm Diana McCullum.
And you're listening to Talk from Superheroes, where every week we discuss a piece of heroic television or film. And this week on the podcast, we are talking about the new release that is streaming on Netflix right now. It's the new film by Zack Snyder. It is Rebel Moon Part 1, A Child of Fire is what we're talking about this week.
Oh boy. We love to dissect a title, and this week I don't even want to.
Don't even feel it, huh?
Let this title just speak for itself. Mm-hmm. I think you, listeners, you know how we feel.
You know how we feel
about a part and a bunch of commas.
Yeah, and a colon, which
colon. I meant colon.
We know my thoughts on a colon.
Never welcome.
But it's what we're talking about. We're talking about Rebel Moon Part 1, A Child of Fire, the new film by Zack Snyder. That is a Netflix film. We're talking about that this week on the podcast. Zach is back on it.
He is technically back.
He's back, baby. So we're talking about that this week on the podcast. This is a new film, and anytime that we talk about anything new, we always give you a spoiler-free review, which our regular listeners, you know this. If you're new, welcome. We'll give you a spoiler-free review in case you're on the fence about watching it, not sure if it's worth your time, or just want a taste of this episode before you get further in. We're going to give you a spoiler-free review. Then, once you hear the theme music, that will be when we enter the spoiler-filled section. So to start with the spoiler-free review, the simple question, Diana, did you like it?
Sometimes I think our jobs are really great. I wake up and I'm like, oh man, I watch movies for a living and I write comics about superheroes and I work with my partner. Life's so good. And then sometimes for my job, I have to watch Rebel Moon and I don't think it's worth it. It's just not worth it anymore at times like this. This movie is so bad. It is wretched. It is terrible. It is Zack Snyder back on his bullshit in all the worst ways. And I thought he had grown so much more as a writer and director than this. So I'm also disappointed. This movie, I guess, asks some really important questions. You know, what if a 12-episode TV show was a 2-hour movie, but bad? What if instead of a plot, you just had some nonsense and it was bad? What if instead of character development, a girl just had a really big hat and it was bad? It's all bad. I will give one light compliment on it looks great. Zack Snyder is still really good at CG for the most part, considering how heavily CG this is. A lot of it looks fantastic, except for one scene at the end that might not have been finished. We're not sure what happened there. We'll talk about it. But yeah, it looks pretty good, but it is nonsense, but not fun nonsense. That's so slowly paced. It's only 2 hours and 15 minutes, and we thought it felt like 3 hours long. It was a slog to get through. Please don't watch this movie. I hated it. So no, I didn't like it. Andrew, did you like Rebel Moon Part 1, A Child of Fire?
I didn't like it, but I didn't dislike it as much as you.
I hated this movie.
I'm only a soft dislike on this. This movie, more than anything, is boring. We've watched worse movies. This movie is the metaphor I use to describe it is like trying to critique this movie. It is like being a food critic and going over to like someone's place for dinner, and they put down a glass of water in front of you. And that's it. And they're like, what did you think of dinner? And as a food critic, you're trying to dissect it. And you're like, well, it wasn't bad. It wasn't good. It wasn't poison. It wasn't rotten. But it wasn't dinner. It was a glass of water you put in front of me. It was nothing. It was empty calories. It was the absence of food. That's how I feel about this movie, is that I think we're going to have a fun time dunking on it, but I actually don't think it's wretched. I don't think it invokes any human emotion at any point. This does feel like truly, and I know that this is kind of like a punchline that a lot of people use, but like AI art. This is just kind of soulless, artless fluff. It's just a glass of water when you're asking for a meal. It doesn't invoke enough emotion to be bad. It is just boring, bland fluff for 2 hours. It's not anything. Even when I look at like the performances, I'm like, no one does a good job. No one does a bad job. Everyone stands there and looks where Zack Snyder told them to look while the camera moves in slow motion. Everyone does the job that they were told to do in the situation where they had to do it. And in regards to a film set that requires the collaborative efforts of thousands of people, it is amazing. Everyone did exactly what they were told to do, which was to pour a glass of water for dinner. And it's just, I'm more flabbergasted than anything that like it's just such nothing. It's like that's all that this is. So yeah, I don't actually think it's that bad. I think that we'll have fun and we'll dunk on it and we'll talk about it like it's bad, but I actually don't think it's that bad. I think it's just boring. It's just bland.
I will give you that I love this analogy about water. I think it is bland. It's so boring. It's very bland. But I'll disagree and I'll say that like I'll half agree because I feel like what he did was he poured 10 different drinks into a glass and served it to you. And somehow it became water?
Right. They nullified each other somehow a little bit.
Here's a drop of Dune and here's a drop of Avatar and a big helping of Star Wars, and you drank and you got water in the end.
Right.
Which is almost impressive.
Yeah.
But not.
It's not.
But not. But yeah, I will agree, wretchedly boring. I'm very surprised you're only as a mild dislike considering we had to pause 3 times because we were bored.
Yeah.
But that's bored.
Like movies that I hate, I will be like, oh, like I'll be yelling. I'll be like, what is happening? This like I'll have commentary, but this was just one where it's like maybe I'll take a third pee break. Like it's just like why not?
Grab
like
some snacks.
Yeah, even my bladder was just kind of like we're not doing anything right now, are we? Like nothing really evoked anything in me in any way. Is kind of where I'm at on this. But I also not as harshly as you, but I can't encourage anyone to watch this because it's not the type of bad where it's like get a couple drinks and round up your friends, get ready to riff track it. It's Mystery Science Theater. It's just kind of not really worth the watch in any regard.
Yeah, it's not ridiculous stuff happens bad. It's exposition dump bad, like over and over again. It's like, oh, this scene is more exposition, but not about the same thing, about a different planet and a different character and just... Yeah, he wanted to build an entire world in 2 hours, but then that's all you do.
Yeah.
So there's nothing interesting. It's all world building.
Can it be spoiled?
I guess if you somehow got involved, there's like 2 things at the end that maybe could be spoiled, but it's pretty light. I mean, you'd have to also be able to figure out which character I was talking about if I'm trying to spoil stuff, and there's so many, and they aren't particularly distinct. Even though they're all really distinct, they're all water. But they didn't come out of jugs that said water on them.
It's fascinating.
It's wild.
Yeah, I'm with you. Similar vein. I don't think this is going to be spoiled. It's all just gobbledygook exposition. You don't develop an attachment to anyone. No one has any twists or turns. Maybe one that's supposed to be a twist on paper, but it's all very whatever. I don't think this can be spoiled for you in any way.
No, not really. I'd give it a pretty light possibility to be spoiled.
Yeah. Don't watch it.
But also don't watch it.
Don't watch it. It can't be spoiled. Just keep listening to the episode and let's all just vibe.
Just keep listening. This isn't one of those fun bad movie watches. We don't want you to go through this.
No, don't go through this, but go through this episode. Let's get into the spoiler-filled section. Let's talk more about Rebel Moon Part 1, A Child of Fire. All right, we are now in the spoiler-filled section of this movie that is boring in every way.
It's so boring. It's boring, and I have questions, but I don't want to ask Zack Snyder any of the answers because I don't want to hear any more about this movie. I'm in a real weird place about it.
No, I fully understand that, and I agree with what you said in the spoiler-free review, and this is the first point that I kind of want to hammer in on, is that this feels like such a step backwards for Zack Snyder, which a man who we have now covered so much, I think all of his work on this podcast.
I think we've done all of his movies except the spin-off of Army of Thieves. or Army of the Dead, which was Army of
Yes,
Thieves.
yeah, which I think he was just a producer on. He didn't
Yeah.
direct that one. But we have been talking about him now for years on the podcast, and he's someone we've always been very critical of because his movies aren't for us. We're not the diehard fans. But we've been talking that with every project, we like it way more than we expect to, and he's been getting nothing but better and better as a director to the point where we thought Army of the Dead slapped and didn't get the love it deserved. It was great. And for an outing that was your first time as a director doing original IP, and it was his first time as a cinematographer, it was like, holy shit, Zach, this is actually the first time where you have full creative control of a project, and you did way better than any of your interpretations of previous IP. He's growing, it's more progressive, it's less problematic, it's more entertaining. Everything has been getting better. And then this feels like Sucker Punch. This feels like a decade-long leap backwards.
I completely agree, because I remember when we had to do like 3 Snyders in a row, and we were like, wow, you can really feel like his growth, not just technically, but his maturity growing every movie. Like the way he treats Wonder Woman is so much better than the way Joss Whedon would treat Wonder Woman, and like really respectful of this character and where she's coming from, and she's badass, and all the characters in Army of the Dead, as we said. And we're like, oh wow, he's really learned a lot. And this is such a step back in that it's got problematic sexual themes at one point that I'm like, I thought we were past this, Zach. Mm-hmm. It's back to everything is slow motion, which is a terrible thing to get latched onto, because when everything epic's nothing epic, it's been a real problem that he's had in so many movies that to come back to it again is just like, it feels like he made this 8 to 10 years ago and just released it now.
Yes.
None of his growth is here.
Which in many ways I think is exactly what happened here.
You think he wrote this like...
Yeah.
Oh, wait, actually think I read he did write this in like 2012 or something.
This was legitimately written as a sequel to The Force Awakens. Like this was his pitch to do Star Wars. So this was a Star Wars script that he did a find all replace as for the character names and did some small tweaks on. But this is legitimately the Zack Snyder of over a decade ago, is who we're seeing, who we're reading and hearing. It is literally and metaphorically a step backwards for him. And it doesn't fit. And also it's really strange that this exists in that regard. I can't think of any other movie that has done this variant of a script rework of it was written to be part of a franchise and then unwritten to be an original IP. Normally it's vice versa. Normally it's like Die Hard with a Vengeance was a different action movie. And like one of the Ocean's movies was a different script. One of the Saw movies was a different script, was an original IP. And that kind of makes sense for that direction for scripts to go, to be like, I wrote a movie about a serial killer. And then a studio being like, we need another one with the Saw movie. Keep that script the same, but this time it's a puppet. Don't worry about it. You know, like I wrote a heist movie. Be like, call that lead character Danny Ocean. We've got it. Let's keep it moving.
Roll it.
But to be like, I wrote a Star Wars movie, and no, okay, well, it's not Han Solo. Don't worry about it. It doesn't work in that direction, and I can't think of any other examples where scripts have done this of I wrote something for something else and then released it anyway.
Yeah, because I think every other time this has happened, it would be if it was a big director or writer and they were pitching something. I think the studio, if they were officially pitching it, I think the studio owns the pitch.
Yeah.
But also, if you're a smaller writer or director, then technically you've just written Star Wars fan fiction and you would never get the budget to make a Star Wars. So this really is, I guess, Zack Snyder's fan fiction that he did a replace all on. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. I write fan fiction and highly respect it on fan fiction as a genre. But like officially it means Disney Star Wars never bought it or wanted it.
Yeah. No one wanted it. No one talked to him about it. This is somewhere in between the most expensive fan fiction ever made and a legal backflip over laser beams. Like the amount of like lawyering that must have been done to be like, Netflix is calling this their Star Wars, and it's a script that was Star Wars, and somehow no one's getting sued.
No one's even inklings of getting sued. It's like, no, it's not lightsabers. It's just regular swords that heat up. And I'm like, that is different, technically.
It's technically different.
Yeah. I'm not wondering how the lasers work because metal can just heat up. I
Yeah.
actually couldn't totally understand the mechanics of how those swords work.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm like, I guess that's different. That's fine. Star Wars can't do shit about that.
And be like, an adoptive child whose parents were lost in the war grows up on a farm only to find their way back into it. Be like, I guess you can't own that.
When you phrase it like that, it's a little
When
bit.
you phrase it like that.
She doesn't have any magic powers.
And then the old general Kenobi, I mean Titus, comes and helps you out. And it is just... and even beat by beat, even the like, I am on a farm, someone has come, they have killed people now who are a part of my place. We go to a bar, we find a space pirate, we hire him for his ship. In the bar, we get into a fight, but no one acknowledges it because it's the Wild West. It is... I reading reviews building up to this that were like, it's exactly Star Wars. I'm like, I think people are kind of overblowing this. That I get that Star Wars is this huge monolith in pop culture that it's hard to get past, but you can't really own space Nazis. Authoritarianism in sci-fi is something that no one can really own. And then I see it and I'm like, this is just beat for beat. I'm going to agree and disagree because as you lay it out, it is. As I watched this, I actually got zero Star Wars vibes from it at all. I think because a lack of magic, a lack of anything inspiring or charming or interesting happening. As you lay out the plot, I'm like, oh yeah, beat by beat, it is Star Wars-y. The bad guys definitely are Nazi-esque when you think about it for more than half a second. Because literally every scene I thought was inspired by other movies that weren't Star Wars. Like I would say like when we get to like the farm and the bad guys show up, it's like wants to be Tarantino for a scene. It's a long buildup of talking and the tension's building and then one big brutal action That's a little
scene.
Inglorious. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, a little Inglorious Bastards, a little Tarantino-esque. Then later we get to meet like Tarek and suddenly we're in a How You Train Your Dragon movie.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, no, it doesn't feel like Star Wars. Like it doesn't feel new.
Yeah.
But it feels like, and then everything else feels like specifically a 1995 sci-fi movie.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Like,
no, I get it.
Like original Dune, like how like sci-fi movies kind of used to feel back in the 90s, even though it's all CG and not very practical. It really is everything. And you managed to make nothing out of it.
Well, it feels like a flavor of a flavor because everything that you're describing and like everything that we're going through is films that were influenced by a lot of things that other things were influenced by. It's your Kurosawa, Hidden Fortress, and Seven Samurai. To be like, Star Wars was influenced by Kurosawa. Tarantino was influenced by Kurosawa. And this is that without feeling like it ever made it to the source material. Like it's an impression of an impression. It's a flavor of a flavor. It's not inspired by the same thing. It is copying a thing that was inspired by a thing. And like it's a photocopy of a photocopy where like we're just losing resolution with every turn around the bend is kind of how it feels.
Yeah, and then you can't recognize the original in it out of that many photocopies, but you're also like, it still doesn't look good though.
Yeah.
Just blurry.
Yeah.
It's just a blurry picture.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But yeah, it feels Star Wars most of all, first and foremost, which is, I guess, literally what it is, to the point where like the space Nazis are British. Everyone else is not. So it's just like that. Like we cast British actors to be the space Nazis for some reason, and then everyone else is. Yeah, so it's just a strange series of things.
It is. It's definitely there once you lay it out, but I still don't feel it.
Oh, I don't feel it in any way.
No, but like when you put it on paper, you're like, yeah, Zack Snyder should have been sued.
Yeah.
But then again, you know,
like the lead character working a farm with the silhouette of the red sun behind her, and be like, this is the opening shot of Luke on Tatooine, and we're just doing it again with a little more CGI.
Just a little more CGI because it's 2024, or this came out, I think, technically 2023.
Oh yeah, true too.
But yeah, since we're on Zack Snyder, I just think the last thing I need to just briefly be so disappointed in is this like gangbang sexual assault scene.
Yes.
This is the hugest step back to old Snyder.
Yes. A quick content warning here that there is a violent and sexual scene in this film.
It's actually not,
that we will discuss here briefly.
It's, I guess, not explicit, but like it is at the same time. It's like no one is like physically shown being hurt, but like they're about to do it, and they're very explicit in stating they're about to do it.
It's not graphic, but it's explicit.
Yes, that's, I think, the better words.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes, they are explicit in the sense that like we are all about to commit sexual assault on this woman.
Yeah, we are fighting over the chance to do it first.
Yeah.
Basically, is the only reason it even takes as long as it takes, which makes it worse because the scene just keeps going.
And what's so troubling is that like there's always this difficult discussion in film to be like, how do you portray violent events in a way that is real, if reality is what you're going for, in a way that is respectful, which is something that's always necessary. It's like, how do you approach it? And this isn't it. Because for so many reasons, this isn't it, because it's trying to be Star Wars. And this scene is then followed by an action scene with very little blood, even though she's stabbing people and slitting people's throats. And this whole movie, it's very noticeable that there's little to no blood. It's like, I don't know what it's actually rated, but it feels like it's like Netflix being like, we want this to be Star Wars. It's for the family. And then they have this scene where it's like, what if C-3PO watched Princess Leia about to be sexually assaulted by a group of Nazis? And we did that very real, but then afterwards, we did a fun space fight with no blood. And it's like, you actually can't have both.
Yeah.
You need to decide what the tone of this film is. And if you're going to do one thing, you need to do it very tastefully. And you need to do something that is a serious film about authoritarianism and not a fun sci-fi space opera.
Yeah, because you absolutely can't have a scene that is like, here's a real grounded thing that happens and it's horrific and we're portraying it very realistically and it's haunting and you're not going to like it. But when she kills guys, don't worry, they're just like asleep. She's not really violently murdering anyone, but they were going to violently assault that woman.
Yeah.
They absolutely were. But they're okay. It's like, how is that the one part of this movie that you were like, that's going to be the hard R part?
Yeah.
And like, but then, because at least if the rest of it was violent, I'd be like, oh, that's the world.
Yeah, that's the
world you've made. You've made a Zack Snyder-esque, very harsh, kind of like more like Watchmen level of violence world. But this movie then just being all like lasers, wounds that get cauterized, or people dying like behind shields and stuff.
It switches.
It's cowardly.
For a moment, it's like we want to be like, we're edgy. We're like, it's like, it's trying to be Pan's Labyrinth for a minute, and then it switches back to Lego, and you just can't do that. That makes both shittier and distasteful, and it feels very decade-old Zack Snyder.
Yeah, it's
to be
really
like, it's
300, it's really Sucker Punch.
It's a 14-year-old boy's idea of what maturity is, where it's like, what if it was like super mature and like, oh, these soldiers are going to do an assault. Like, whoa, isn't that like what evil dudes would be like? And then punch, zoom. No, you need to be an adult and write it like an adult if you're trying to write an adult scenario.
But it's going to be cool because a woman's going to save her. And I'm like, that doesn't make it cool.
No,
and
nothing about it's cool.
Nothing's about it cool. So where was the rest of the village? Literally none of them showed up.
And also I'm going to say that one of my biggest complaints is that this movie, for being all fluff and all boring and sci-fi gobbledygook, it's one thing that it was like, okay, if you're going to serve popcorn, serve it up. But the action sucks.
The action sucks.
Holy shit, it sucks.
For a movie that I feel like Snyder was given all the time in the world to film and like had choreographers and was like, we're going to film it in slow motion. So you don't even have to do that much stuff. It's like 3 moves takes 2 minutes in slow motion. And like the choreography's not good. The lead, Sophia Boutella, doesn't feel like powerful or like she even really knows what she's doing.
She never does anything. Like she has that one fight scene against the guards in this horrific incident. She has this fight scene against the guards with like knives and punches. And the camera angles are bad because you can see them not connect. The sound effects don't quite line up with when she pretends to connect. So it's like her fist gets like almost close to a person's face, and then you hear that wet whoop pump, but her fist hasn't reached the end of the line yet. So it's just like the choreography sucks, the camera placement sucks, and the sound effects don't line up. All of this just really fucking blows. And then for the rest of the movie, all she ever does is in slow motion, she shoots a gun and screams while moving towards the camera, but we never see what she's shooting at or why. It is literally just her holding guns up going, ah!
Hey,
and then the camera cuts to her falling behind cover, and that's the whole scene.
You're ignoring the fact that her cape sweeps very dramatically every time. It is a heavily cape-induced slow motion effects. Mm-hmm. It's like, what if her cape looked good again? And like, yeah, the cape looks great.
Sure, things do look cool in slow motion. I'm never going to argue against Zack's for that. It does look cooler in slow motion.
But you're right. She's running straight forward towards nothing. She's shooting at no one in particular. It's like he wanted to recreate the 300 like swarming shots that were so good, but there's no motivation behind it, and it's done 18 times.
Yeah.
I would also say I think what's wrong with these fight scenes is like there's a lot of moments where I think they weren't using real props. I think they were CGing them in later. Like I think the first fight scene, there's this moment where she's like got like I think she has 2 axes and she blocks 2 guns with them. And I don't think the axes or the guns were there. So there's no resistance in her arms. Yeah. There's nothing like clanging off each other. You're just like, she's kind of went like, bing. I bet that's where the guns will be. It's like so easy to give someone props so that they can actually like clang against the stunt actor. And I don't think she had one in the few scenes that she had that had hand-to-hand choreography.
And I think that's also why the sound effects make it feel worse, where like it is that pretend hit where she holds up a pretend axe and someone pretends hits her with like the butt of a gun, but the 2 objects never collide. And then you hear a clang, but like there's no muscle tension. No. She's got wobbly arms.
Even though she's got muscles.
She's muscular. She got in shape. She's in great shape. She's muscular. She looks like an action hero and never gets an action scene to validate how she looks.
Yeah, which is surprising because she was the bad guy in the first Kingsman. And those scenes were awesome. So she can do this.
I think that she is a talented actor and a talented person, and just like, I don't even think things went wrong. Things just went. Glass of water. Glass of water. Things just went.
Zack just said, we got it.
Yeah. Yeah. Every action scene, she moves from behind a piece of rubble to behind a second piece of rubble while shooting a gun at no one in particular.
Rubble moon.
Yeah, rubble moon, more like it. Am I right?
Am we right? Are we right? I'd like to be positive for a minute. I have 2 positives. As I said at the top, this movie does look really good. Like I will say, even for having stolen the 2 moons shot from the beginning from Star Wars, that looks incredible. Like, and other scenes also look very, very good. But that was the shot that I'm like, I see why you have been showing this for 5 minutes. This like silhouette of her working the field against this huge red moon, and like why the guy who's in love with her is watching her do it for so long. It is just a gorgeous shot. And like a lot of the movie looks almost equally good. So like whoever did his CG nailed it.
Yeah, whoever did his CG, and also like he does have an eye for replication, which I think is something that he has, and there is a talent to that. Like I want to dismiss it, and I don't know if that's just frustration or jealousy or what, but I want to dismiss it. But he has an eye for like, how do I recreate that iconic Star Wars shot, but make it look a little bit crisper and a little bit better, and change the contrast slightly, and maybe there's not as much soul behind it, but it is a really well done recreation.
It's kind of why he's also like pretty okay in a lot of aspects at superhero movies. You take the comic and you're like, how do I make this hand-drawn image a really cool visual?
He does one-to-one recreations and knows how to successfully accomplish that. And then there's even just little touches during, you know, the emotion of this movie doesn't connect, but it kind of goes through the motions of being emotional. Not to sound too rhymey on that one.
No, the AI robot version of
like,
I think these are emotions.
These are what human emotions look like. Like the moment where the lead character Cora, she's in her house with whatever guy took her in, I guess, after she was found in rubble or something.
Who the hell was that?
And it's a big exposition dump of backstory of like, here's the thing about not the Empire, the Imperials.
Jesus.
Here's the thing about the Imperials.
Didn't even replace the whole word.
Not even the whole word. She's like, here's the thing, and it's this and that. And she's talking in between these like two sheets that are in the center of the room that is the room divider. And it's these semi-transparent sheets. And it is an exact Kurosawa shot. I think it's from Hidden Fortress. I can't quite remember.
Okay.
But it is a beautiful, like, it's a great way of framing a person within the frame, of using a room divider and that fabric curtain and the way light kind of diffuses through it. It's beautiful. It's well lit. It is a recreation of a Kurosawa thing. It's a flavor of a flavor. But like, there's no heart or emotion behind that scene, but it is a great recreation of something that has heart or an emotion.
Yeah.
Like, it's just really well done impressions.
Yeah, like if you ever had to get like a memory recreated by a filmmaker, you're gonna call Zack Snyder.
Yeah.
I remember a thing, but I can't make it myself. And he'd be like, I got you, fam.
He shouldn't be making movies. He should be making Total Recalls. Not the film or book, but the actual Total Recall program where they put memories in your brain. That's what Zack Snyder should be, the director of whatever the company from Total Recall was.
Or he just shouldn't write the movies he makes. I think that would also really help.
Or he should, because Army of the Dead
Army of
worked.
the Dead, I don't understand. I mean, we've already said like that he wrote this so long ago, but like, yeah, it's just like Army of the Dead worked on every level. Interesting visuals, better characters, fun, snappy, charming.
And this is also not meant to be an original IP. So it's not even really if this was made as a Star Wars film, this would not be original IP writing. It would be him again trying to do an impression of an existing IP using impressions of other things.
That also really does explain why there are so many characters given so little time to be explored, because in a Star Wars sequel, I don't need to be told who Han Solo is.
Yes.
We can just go meet Han Solo.
Yeah.
And then it's fine. But in the movie where you have a new IP, you have to explain who these characters are and have a conversation at least with them to get a vibe for who they are and what they're like, and if they're charming, if they're evil, if we trust them, if they're cool. But that doesn't happen here because, every character, I guess, was supposed to just be an established Star Wars character.
Yeah, or I think at least 50% of them were meant to be. You know, we have clearly what was meant to be Han Solo, a General Kenobi proxy. I don't know what that was supposed to be, but, you know, people who were supposed to be the legacy characters, and maybe you introduce which is literally kind of like what The Force Awakens does, which is here's 3 new ones, 3 old ones. And this is 6 new ones, and 3 of them are clearly meant to be old ones. So, but they have to introduce each one individually, and none of them have enough backstory to carry any weight or function on their own.
No. I will say, I have a second compliment, though.
Lay it on me.
Everything's bland. No one is interesting, except I think Ray Fisher rocks.
I fucking agree. Yeah.
He got so little to do. He had, as little as everyone else who wasn't the lead.
Sure.
He got introduced just as quickly. But he is like, he has this gravitas. His look's really cool. And he's got this gravitas and like this charisma. And you can tell how he's leading this army and why people are following him. And I was like, I barely even recognized the guy. He's Cyborg, if you don't remember who Ray Fisher is. So he's Darian Bloodaxe. Fun name. And he's just so cool, and I liked him so much. And again, the disappointment of Snyder, he's the only character that dies.
Yeah.
He will not be in the sequel. Literally, there's 18 characters in this movie. The one character I liked is the one who died.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
How did this happen? I really think that character absolutely slapped.
I think that to say the character slap might be extreme.
Well, Ray made him.
Slaps.
Ray made him slap.
Yeah, because it's written, I agree, it's written as flat as everybody else, but when he comes out, he's the only character who I'm like, you existed before this scene started.
Oh, he did exist.
He's the only character that existed before that scene started.
He was doing a thing.
Yes.
He was like, I just came here for supplies. I'm mid other meeting.
Yeah. And even everyone else has like air quote backstory, but it really feels like they've been like floating in a white void until the lead character gets there. He's the only one doing a thing. And he is also the only one who comes with built-in relationships with other people, which he then sells as a performer as well. That's the other thing that I find is such a missed opportunity in this movie as well, is that like everyone's introduced one by one. There's no one who comes as a package deal. And he comes as a package deal with his sister, which is slightly better writing. But then even the way it's like, he's like, who's with me? And someone comes out and it's just him being like, I knew you would. And I'm like, I don't know who this other person is, but I love how you just sold the line, I knew you would.
Where
it implies that you existed before screen. And Ray Fisher is the only one who sold any line in this movie with charisma.
Mm-hmm.
When he said that, I was like, yeah, she will follow you. You are cool. That's the only charismatic line in this whole movie.
Yeah, and I'm like really happy for him, and I'm glad he gets to like explode and be cool. I'm not happy he died, but like there's other equally good actors in this that like aren't making this work. I'm like, Jaimin Hansu, I don't care that you're here, but I love you as an actor. Like you have saved other movies that sucked. He was in The King's Man, a truly terrible film, worse than this one by far.
And more offensive by far.
And more offensive
truly
by far.
Atrocious. That one is atrocious.
Yes, and he nails it in that movie. He's fun in the Shazam movies. And in this, he gets like, at least a dozen lines, and I don't feel anything. I'm like, you're still fucking jacked as hell, Jaimin, looking great.
60 years old.
You son of a bitch.
You son of a bitch, Hansu.
You can't look better than us 30-somethings.
Fuck you.
Bastard.
So kudos.
Never mind. I don't like Jaimin Hansu anymore.
No, I'm putting a positive column to be his slamming bod in this movie.
No, it is slamming.
He's 60 years old, and he is slamming.
He's in gladiator gear, just a loincloth, basically. Every muscle is popped.
Yeah.
It looks incredible.
So, but I agree, typically Hansu is someone who elevates everything he's in, no matter the quality. This is one where he shows up and is water. He matches the exact kind of flat tone of all of it. He doesn't elevate it, which is very rare for him. But, he doesn't bring it down either because he's a goddamn world-class actor who cannot be held back in any way. One quick thing that I do want to goof on. Charlie Hunnam. Another person who I think is a great actor at times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say at times is a great way to describe Charlie Hunnam's acting.
But in recent years, I'm going to say, and this is something that we've brought up previously about Christian Bale, where Charlie Hunnam has not done his natural speaking voice in so long and has chosen so many different accents for each role that he has actually forgotten how any human from anywhere talks.
What is his accent?
I think he's trying to do an Irish.
No, what's his real accent?
He's British.
He's British. Okay.
He's British.
He's definitely
and this
not
he's trying
doing
to do an Irish. He's American on
the biker show.
The biker show, which I forget now.
And in Crimson Peak?
In Crimson Peak was another one where he was going bananas, where he was playing like a British cowboy. I don't know what that was. But Charlie Hunnam has taken so many wild swings with accents over the course of his career, many of which really worked. But it has reached a point where, like, actors who do accent work need to hit the reset switch in their personal life and time in between. And he works so often with so many wild accent swings, he hasn't hit the reset switch. And it is messed up. It's like the end of Terminator 2 when the T-1000 is gooing into every character it's impersonated. And it's just Charlie Hunnam doing an Irish accent that's all over the place. But he sounded like this in Crimson Peak. It is just reaching a point where he is full Christian Bailing, where I'm like, you don't know who you are anymore.
Charlie Hunnam's lost all perspective. He did Sons of Anarchy, as the name of the show, we forgot, for like 6 or 7 years, which is like straight American. And then I think he lost himself.
Yes.
I think he was like, I don't know who I am anymore, but I'm still getting big roles, because he also played Robin Hood, but I don't remember him. I remember him feeling kind of American, even though he is British.
I think he was. I think Robin Hood, he was British. He was American in Pacific Rim.
Oh no, wait, sorry, King Arthur.
Or King Arthur, yeah.
But Pacific Rim, he was American, but had that like not quite American roundness.
The roundness to
There's
the vowels.
A roundness.
But I think that like Charlie Hunnam straight up needs to take a year off acting and live in one city and be like, I'm moving back to London. I'm living here for 1 year doing no work. And I am just living a human life where I talk to human people in my human voice.
Well, let's hope he took a little break during the strike.
Yes.
Maybe he got back to his roots. Like maybe the next thing we see Charlie Hunnam in after this, because this was obviously filmed pre-strike, we'll be like, oh, he's back, baby.
Yeah.
He's legible. I don't know what voice legible is. There's a word. legible by voice.
I understand.
Understandable.
Yeah, but he's a great actor, and again, he's fine in this, but his accent's just a little wet and wild lately. So that's just a little goof on Charlie Hunnam, who I think is otherwise very talented.
Oh, I like Charlie Hunnam just fine. I didn't see the twist coming that he was the bad guy because no one had any characterization.
Yes.
So I guess that's maybe something.
Well, when he says to the lead character, so he's playing the Han Solo type, and he says to the lead character, Cora, he goes, "Wow, you really inspire people. You've inspired me to make a difference and fight for the rebels." And it's like those two at that point, the lead character hadn't had a line in 30 minutes. She hadn't spoken in 30 minutes.
Which is pretty crazy because normally she speaks for like 10 minutes at a time about her backstory in the academy.
Yeah. And so she'll soliloquy, but she hasn't had a line in 10 30 minutes.
She won't let you
get
a word in edgewise. She's like, it's soliloquy time.
So when he said, like, "You've inspired me," we laughed our asses off. It was truly comedic. It was one of the funniest moments in the movie.
You made me a good man. And we were like, have they spoken?
I don't think they spoke. I don't think they'd spoken to one another.
They've never talked to each other. He's been in the same room as her. Yeah. Truly ridiculous writing. This movie, because this movie got made for sure. Like, Zach wrote it forever ago. And now he's at the point where definitely, like, no one at Netflix was like, you need an editor. Because this movie is like a first draft through and through. Like, I think the very end scene is, I'm going to say the word wretched again, because it's like Charlie Hunnam's betrayed them. And they're all in these, like, they actually think they're kind of cool, the little, like, bounty hunter boxes.
Those are kind of cool. They look cool.
They're kind of cool. It's a cool way to transport someone who's been bounty hunted. I'll give them that. So Charlie Hunnam's captured everyone. He's like, do you know why I had to do this? The general's worth like $5,000. You're the biggest bounty of all time. Nemesis over here, no one's ever caught her. And he goes through each one of them and why he had to betray them. Literally, 30 seconds later, Ed Skrein, the bad guy, comes on. He's like, oh my God, look at all these bounties. We've got General Titus. He's worth $5,000. Nemesis and her double blades. No one's ever. He says the lines again.
Yeah.
And I am just losing my mind. Like, it's not even that long a movie, but I'm like, there was no editing done here.
I agree. Here's why I'm happy that happened. It wasn't until the second time when Ed Skrein said it that I legitimately went, oh, that's who that person's that's why we're supposed to care about that person.
Well, then this needed to happen way sooner in the movie.
Oh, I agree. That's why I was mad at that
end
scene. I wanted that scene an hour ago because when that happened, I was like, oh, okay, that does make it seem like she's important.
Oh, that's why General Titus is a big deal. Okay.
I was only just then starting to get it. And so I was so glad to finally get it. But I agree it should have been an hour ago, and it was too late for me to get it.
And it didn't need to be said twice, but fair enough.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, because this movie, just some of the other writing. It's like she's doing the flashback. She's talking about the princess, and she's like, literally, this is the writing. It's
lay it on us.
Oh, my God. And then someone thought she was special. They called her the life bringer because she could bring life. That's the line.
Yeah. Well, I forget. It was like, her name means life bringer, the one who can bring life, because she can bring life. And then they show us as an audience her bring a bird back to life. And then they show the lead character see that happen. And it is the most that meme of Garth Marenghi's Dark Place of, I know writers who use subtlety and there are subtext and they're all cowards. It is no subtext. Her name means life bringer because she's the life bringer, because they thought she would bring life. I saw her bring life. Here, look at this scene where she brings life, and I, the lead character, will verify that I too saw it to let you know that it's literal and not a metaphor. Calm the fuck down, movie.
There's subtext, there's text, and then there's just not editing, though. Then there's just not an economy of words happening.
Yeah, hypertext.
Hypertext.
Yeah. The life bringer thing was bananas.
Said it so many times. Oh, one more plot thing. Can I throw one more weird plot thing at you?
Please do.
I have so many questions about Dan from The Village.
Which one's Dan? Is Dan the one with us the whole time?
No. Dan is the one not with us the whole time. But everyone at the village talks about Dan.
Oh, yeah, the one they do a real
Peeta
and Gale.
If
I was trying to
Gale
remember.
had 0 lines and never spoke to Katniss,
I don't understand what was going on with Dan at the village.
this was so weird.
I don't understand what was going on with most of the village. They got Anthony Hopkins to play the C-3PO character who has a subplot that ends like a video game side quest.
His subplot ends with the show Yellow Jackets. He's just
Robot Yellow Jacket.
He's just out in the woods killing people wearing horns. He's like yellow jacketing, off doing his own thing. I don't know what happened to the soldier who stayed at the village, who wasn't a dick, the one who got to live.
Yeah.
He didn't join the troops that were turning against the Imperiums. But yeah, so this Dan thing drove me insane because we open the movie up and who's not Dan? Gunner. Gunner is not Dan. So Gunner's the main dude who ends up being the main dude. But like, so the lead girl, Gunner's in love with her. But then everyone's like, Dan was asking about your lead girl. And then they're like, oh, Dan's over there and he looks really nice. And then like the other guy's like, if you marry Dan, you'll be part of it. And I'm like, okay, so she's not in love with Dan, but she is secretly in love with Gunner, I guess. And Dan's just this guy we're going to talk about. But then after the festival, one of the girls is talking to her and she's like, I walked by Dan's house and I heard you guys having sex. And she's like, maybe. And I'm like, so you did fuck Dan?
Or didn't you?
Or didn't you fuck Dan? Why is Dan part of the conversation and not just Gunner's in love with you and you don't love him back?
Yeah. Yeah. Why is this guy here?
It's so baffling to me.
Well, this village that they open in sets up all of the plot points that could be one full movie, where it's like we have...
Oh yeah, you could have a full Hunger Games here.
We have a love triangle. We have a space Nazi occupation. We have this girl in the village who has this horrific encounter with them, but who also inspires a robot who hasn't picked up arms since the falling of the king to believe in something again. This soldier who has turned against his own side. There are so many full stories that and like the leader who was killed and now the survivor's guilt of a man who tried to cooperate with authoritarianism, who caused the leader's fall. It just all gets farted into the wind as they fly away.
Yeah, they set up so many storylines. None of them, and like, it's a part 1 of 2. I guess maybe they'll come back around.
Sure.
But it doesn't work as a part 1.
No.
Yeah, this is like, it really feels like a show. Like every episode should have been, we meet one of the people. The first episode's all the village. Like, it really could have progressed in an interesting way then. Like, there's so much here. This is like 8 movies worth of stuff going on.
Well, it feels like a show, and it also feels like we need to briefly touch upon the book vibes of it all, which we mentioned. It
feels like a book.
Like, even the fact that it is called Part 1: A Child of Fire. To give a subtitle to it is a very book thing to do. Just the font choice and the title card feels very book. There are a few initial moments where it feels like it's the cover of what should be a book.
Yeah, I felt like I was being gaslit because as it's opening, I'm like, feels like I can see the cover of this book. Like, this must have been a book.
And even you bring up like the Hunger Games vibes of that village, be like, that's also a very book thing to be like, here's a whole fucking setting. We're actually going to bounce away from that for a long time, but we will get back and pay that off. It's a very book thing to do. And it's just very strange that there's a book vibe to it all.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah, like, was it a book at first? But I can't picture Zack Snyder sitting down and writing a book.
Yeah,
he's been a director.
How do you write slow motion in a book?
Big font.
Yeah, read this page slowly in a parenthetical.
No, it's like the font's really big, so you got to turn the page every word. And turn page, then turn page. She, turn page,
this actually is weirdly dramatic,
yeah,
I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, so like big font, small book.
All right.
Whatever you gotta do.
This is now starting to work for me here. So yeah, there's a book vibe there to a lot of it.
There's a book vibe.
And yeah, the Peeta and Gale and
There's also a weird vibe. Zack Snyder has done something weird in casting this movie. All of the guys in this movie have very much the same white guy vibe, and I don't know how to explain it other than all of their faces are very rectangular with a lot of bones.
Okay.
Like every single guy in this movie has the same vibe to the point where two of them played the same character on Game of Thrones.
I was just about to say, yeah.
Yeah, not just because both Dario Naharises are in this movie.
Yes. Ed Skrein and Michael Huisman.
Yes. So these two guys both played Dario Naharis on Game of Thrones, but everyone else also has these same, like the general has the same like just white muscly face kind of vibes, and like Tariq isn't a white guy, but like he's got the same like cheekbone structure. Like it felt like every guy in this movie just went through the same, like your bones have to line up in the same way. Even James, the model from The Price is Right, who has a quick scene, has the same face.
Yeah.
It's just really like sunken in cheekbone look.
Yeah.
And I'm just like really uninspired by Zach's like casting.
Yeah, I think it's casting. It is also just a combination of like the lighting is the same.
Ooh,
like Zach does know how to do lighting. It looks cool.
You can see this whole movie.
And you can see this whole
So that's
movie, and I
very
really
nice.
like and respect that.
That's very nice.
But it is one thing. Each planet is one type of lighting. Each spaceship is the same type of, like, there's no difference. There's no like, oh man, when they went to the ice world, like there's no.
Why did the Rebel Moon planet with a red moon not have a cool different light on it?
So everyone also has like lighting that highlights their cheekbones in the exact same way that every room and every ship and every planet has the exact same kind of cheek defining lighting as well.
Okay, I get what you're saying there. Though I just think some people just need to eat another meal. No
Yeah.
one's cheeks are like puffed out.
Yeah, no one's puffy.
Not a single puff cheek. Maybe Ray Fisher.
Yeah.
He looked incredible too.
The robot, old Jimmy. Jimmy had some good puffy cheek. I did like the design of that robot. I did like that,
I
like
actually thought the robot
the little
looked
bulbs,
really-
the flush cheeks.
I mean, he also had these like nice ingrains in him that looked like, when you find out he's like a royalties robot, you're like, oh, they would put a little extra like detailing effort into him. Like the King's robots wouldn't look like just like out of the box, like kind of plain.
Yeah.
So yeah, he actually looked really good. And also just like CG wise, like when he's in the water and he's interacting
Looked
with it.
great.
When he's talking
That
with
was
the
great.
girl, when he's talking with the girl on the beach, like yeah, the CG in this movie is phenomenal.
for the most part.
For the most part.
part.
That one scene that looked like Batman the Animated Series was weird.
Yeah, that one planet with the whatever species that is.
The only people who didn't speak English.
Yeah. And then we had, that one scene on that kind of blue with like black monoliths planet. It was just like, it felt like it wasn't finished. That didn't look right. And also it looked really bad when Ed Skrein's character was fucking an octopus.
Ooh, why was he fucking an octopus?
Yeah.
This was very
Dune.
Saw Gerrera. Oh, I was going to say Saw Gerrera in Rogue One.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, but also...
It felt very like Gross Boys and Dune to be
I
like.
get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I mean, Saw Gerrera had tentacles, but there is grossness in the Dune Boys.
Yeah. So but there was no reason, and it's just like the octopus tentacles wrapping around him as him being like, "No, baby, wait a minute," and it's like nothing looked like it was touching him. It all looked shitty, and also a really dumb, unnecessary scene.
Yeah, it also felt like a scene that was much longer and had been just cut to like 5 seconds. I guess there was like one piece of dialogue they really needed, and they cut the rest of this scene out.
There wasn't.
No, but you know what I
But
mean.
yeah. There was something in there that Snyder wanted, but the whole scene could have been cut. It could have been replaced with a card that just said, and then Ed Skrein's character fucked an octopus, and we could have just moved to the next scene.
I would have loved that.
Just give me that.
Oh my god, yes, give me the card version of Zack Snyder movies.
That's fun.
That's fun. That's a good time.
Oh, well, I'm feeling pretty good on this. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good. I think my very last thing is just like, I guess we already talked about the writing. I was wildly confused about the abruptness of the ending. We got to the final fight, and I was like, it's not the final fight, is it? like, it just didn't feel like we'd built to it. I had no idea if the ship we just destroyed was the big ship we'd been talking about the whole time.
I also didn't know.
Really confused about whether we just had a huge victory or a little one.
And well, that's another one that it wasn't until that like last monologue that the villain gives. It's just like, here's who all of you, the characters, are. And also, by the way, the King's Gaze, that thing we've been mentioning, is the name of that ship. That ship's called the King's Gaze.
Oh, he does say that like 8
I'm
times.
the one who
Yeah.
rides in that ship called the King's Gaze, and it's the same ship that I took to the farm planet. That's the King's Gaze. And I'm like, it is way too late to be giving me this information.
Man, that last scene's load bearing.
It is everything. It has everything relevant in that last scene.
But yeah, I agree. Yeah, that was too much too late.
Yeah, but I agree with you. It does just kind of stop because the whole movie is ending, like building to this, like we've got to bring a warriors back and battle on that farm, and we never do.
We never do. It felt
Maybe
like
we will in a sequel, but we don't in this movie.
Part 2, baby. Finger guns.
Which
But
would
yeah,
be the same fight in the same place because
it's the same amount of people.
And
No, there's going to be a robot with horns, and there'll be a...
And the villain survived at the end of this.
Yeah,
for some
that was bullshit.
Idiotic reason.
I kind of was less mad about it when they revealed that he had a lot of robot parts in him.
Yeah.
But I was still like, come on.
I'm still like, I don't really care about this character.
No.
Yeah, give me the next guy up. Yeah. Well, let's go in for the close. Let's ask the final question of what would you change? So now that we've discussed everything, what would you change about this if you could change anything? Before we do ask that final question, we will remind you, as we do every week, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podcast Addict, wherever you are getting your podcasts. Chances are there's a way to leave a review or at the very least leave a rating, and it helps us move up the charts and find new listeners, and it's very important to us.
It's important to us on the charts and in our hearts, as we always say. New reviews help us feel good. It helps new potential listeners be like, oh, people like them. They're relevant. They're putting out new hot shit all the time. It really, really helps us out, especially now in the new year. Maybe your resolution would be, let's leave nice reviews for the people whose podcasts we listen to. Just an idea.
That'd be a dope resolution.
Very doable resolution.
You know, that is actually, I might
Start
put that out
small.
there.
People go too big on their resolutions.
And that's a resolution that appreciates artists and creators that you like and you love, and it's supportive, it's kind, it's attainable. That's, you know what, that's goddamn everything we should be going for this year.
Excellent. 2024, review your creators, show some love. It's easy to do.
Love that. And that's a free way to support the podcast. If you do want to support the podcast monetarily, if you want to step up your resolution or whatever you've got going on in your life, if you have a little bit of money in your budget, you can head on over to our Patreon page. You can directly support us and get cool bonuses for doing it. For example, at the $3 level, you get our podcasts early and ad-free. No ads. And early, which is extra awesome when we're talking about new stuff and maybe you want to check out the spoiler-free review.
It's cool that that's like two different things. Because if you don't like ads, that's great. If you want the spoiler-free review early, double great.
And if you want to support us making this show, triple great.
Whoa.
So
many, 2024, baby.
Hold on to your butts.
Hold on to it.
And then as well, at the $10 level, you can get an exclusive episode of this podcast every single month that we just release on our Patreon page. And when you sign up at that level, you get immediate access to the whole back catalog as well. So a huge catalog, lots of options, whether it's $1, $3, $10, $20, whatever you have in your budget, you can sign up. You can always cancel or change at any given month if your budget happens to change. And if you want to, you can also sign up for 1 year and then you'll get 1 month free as well. So check out all the options and all of the cool bonus content over at our Patreon page, which is at patreon.com/fromsuperheroes. That is patreon.com/fromsuperheroes.
And we haven't mentioned it in a while. You can also listen through Spotify now when you become a patron. It's wildly convenient and easy.
Yeah.
It's super cool.
And if you don't use Spotify, you can still listen to the Patreon page.
It's not
and other
Spotify.
RSS options.
It is not Spotify exclusive, but if you use Spotify, it's super duper easy.
Yeah. So check it out. Patreon.com/fromsuperheroes. And now, let's go in for the close. Let's ask the final question of what would you change? Diana, what would you change?
What would I change? What would I keep is the question I'm going to answer, and that is what I'm going with. Literally the only thing I want to keep in this movie is Ray Fisher as Darian Bloodaxe. I think he's great. I think he's cool. I think he's elevating the whole movie. So this movie, he is now the lead. This is a movie about him leading the rebellion, which he's doing off screen. He's the leader of the rebellion, him and his sister. So my movie is about Darian and Bloodaxe and his sister. An hour and a half into his movie, he meets up with the rest of this crew. He's like, who the hell are you guys? And he agrees to join them. This movie is entirely from his point of view. I think he's cool. He doesn't die at the end. Someone else can. I don't care who. as long as it's not him. I think he's so cool and he's so fun, and I didn't like anything else, so I was so mad when he died. So it's Darian Bloodaxe's movie. It's now Rebel Moon Part 1, Bloodaxe more than ever, Bloodiest Axe. I don't know. I'll got to workshop the title. I didn't workshop the title to be new, but yeah, I'm full in on Ray Fisher. I think he was great. That's my change. That's the full thing. Andrew, what would you change?
I love it. I love how hard in you are for that. I think his character's awesome. I hadn't even thought about going that hard in on it. Very fun.
Big changes in 2024.
Very fun.
No more small changes.
Very cool. My change is mostly about assembling this team. Is that it takes forever and there is so many of them. And also the first 40 minutes of this movie, we assemble a team and abandon them. I am so frustrated that the start of this movie is like the guy that our lead character Cora lives with being like, you need to find other rebels. And she's like, this is a farming town with no one. Where am I going to find other people who are willing to pick up arms and start a rebellion? And then in the next scene, it is her holding double axes in a room full of dead space Nazis. And then next to her is the ex-Nazi who turned against his squad holding a gun. It is the King's Guard murder bot who hadn't picked up a weapon in a decade because it wasn't inspired to fight until that moment, played by Sir Anthony Hopkins. And it is the walking in is the new leader of the town who got the previous one killed and is dealing with the survivor's guilt and the betrayal of his town and kinship. And like, it's this wide shot of her with double axes and the soldier and the robot and the farmer. And I'm like, oh my God, I actually wasn't sure if I was in on all these disparate storylines you've been setting up, but they've come together in this conflux of moments where it's like a moment ago, a character says to her, where are you going to find other rebel leaders? And now it's the shot and it's the heroes. It's the fucking crew. And then she goes, bye, and leaves. That's the crew. You assembled the crew. You set up the crew in a way that I bought into and I didn't see coming, and was a beautiful conflux of events. And then we leave them behind. No robot, no ex-soldier. Even the water girl, I was invested in you. You had a background and a character and were interesting. And we abandoned that completely. That is the crew, and maybe we get one or two more elements. Maybe you get Bloodaxe because he rips
and he already
and
knew
is cool.
Him. He met the guy before. He knew Gunner.
Yeah.
Bloodaxe is cool.
And here's my other one on assembling the team. You only add two members to the team. You get Bloodaxe because he rips. And he knows one of them. He knows Gunner. So you get Bloodaxe because he rips and he knows Gunner. Then when they go to find Nemesis, the woman with the dual lightsabers, legally not lightsabers, Nemesis is talking to this crazy spider woman who's like, the Imperials have poisoned my planet. My eggs won't hatch. Their machines have salted the earth, poisoned the air. Everything dies and I have nothing left to live for. All I want is revenge. And then Nemesis kills that spider. And I really wanted that scene to end with Nemesis being like, I need you to stop kidnapping kids here, which is a reasonable request. And our crew stepping in and being like, if you want revenge, I actually have a chance for you to do it way better than kidnapping kids. And it's them, Bloodaxe, and the spider lady. And that's the crew. That's your goddamn crew right there.
Babe, I love this for so many reasons. Spider Lady, I bet her eggs would do great on that moon.
Yes.
Real clean air, nothing, no industrialization.
Also, ripped and stronger motivation than Nemesis. Nemesis, the character who kills her, makes no sense in that scene. And Spider Lady, makes so much sense.
And Jenna Malone is also really cool and doesn't have a giant hat.
Also no giant hat.
But yeah, I love this because, yes, of course they already assembled the crew. And also it's like, even if you're not taking them and you need to go get more people, why are they not training the farmers? Like, why didn't you leave the soldier behind to be like, okay, yeah, we need to go get like seasoned warriors, but also everyone here is a jacked farmer who has 10 weeks to learn how to fight. 10 weeks is not amount of time to learn how to fight.
Yeah.
To learn how to shoot a gun?
Yeah.
Or like a little bit of hand-to-hand
PETA and Gale can do it.
Ah, PETA and Gale figured it out. PETA can throw a flat sack of flour, and they were like, champion of the world.
PETA painted himself to look like a goddamn rock within a couple of weeks
and
of
he
preparation.
survived the Hunger Games. Yeah, so there's so much they could have done. I love this change. I love this very much.
And I love your enthusiasm for Bloodaxe as well. It's strong. It's coming in hot. I respect it.
This is great. Our changes don't fully line up, but we have the same energy.
But we have the same vibes.
Same vibes.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's gonna do it for this week. That's gonna do it for us talking about Rebel Moon Part 1: A Child of Fire. We will be back next week. Next week we're going to be talking about Echo.
All of season 1 of Echo.
Whoa!
Looking forward to it. Marvel's first all season drop at once.
Oh wow! They're doing things a little differently this time.
They're dropping the whole season at once.
So we'll be talking about Echo next week on the podcast. In the meantime, if you want to get a hold of us, you can find me on Instagram, Threads, or Blue Sky. I'm at Ivimey, Ivimey.
I am not as straightforward. I am on Tumblr at Words of Diana. I am on Threads and Instagram at Pics of Diana, but I'm always of Diana.
Always of Diana. And if you want to find both of us, all of the podcasts that we do on this network or webcomic and everything that we do, head over to FromSuperheroes.com, and we'll talk to y'all next week.
Bye.